What if I want to convert between radians and degrees for an angle that it's not a special angle? Well, to do that, we're going to use proportions. Let's say that I want to go from radians to degrees. And I have an angle that is 2.9 radians, and I want to know how many degrees it is. What I can do is set up a proportion. I know that there are 2 pi radians in an entire circle, and there are 360 degrees in a whole circle. So these two fractions should be equivalent to each other. 2.9 is the same fraction of 2 pi as x is of 360. Now all I need to do is multiply both sides by 360, and I have 360 times, and notice the radians cancel out here, so I'm left with degrees. So 360 times 2.9, all divided by 2 pi, is equal to x. And what that gives me then is 166.157 degrees is equal to x. Tip: use parentheses when you're dividing on your calculator, or you'll end up dividing by 2 and multiplying by pi. Another check to make sure your answer is right is 2.9 radians should be just a little bit less than, it should be somewhere between 150 degrees and 180 degrees. So that looks very reasonable that 166 degrees is our answer. Now if we want to go from radians to, or degrees to radians, then I can also, let's say I want to do 267 degrees, and I want to know how many radians it is. So once again, I can use a proportion. Now instead of using the proportion that 2 pi equals 360, I could also use the proportion that pi equals 180, and I could say 267 out of 180 degrees is the same thing as x out of pi radians. And I could multiply both sides by pi, and I would end up with my degrees canceling out, and here I have my degrees will cancel out here, and I end up with 267 times pi over 180 equals x, and this will end up in radians. This turns out to be 4.66 radians. Once again, 266 degrees is almost 270. Okay, so we can see it's right in here. So having something between 4 and 5 and closer to 5 radians makes more sense. So 4.66 radians makes perfect sense for this.